I'm Lorraine Moffel, Programming Coordinator for Loudoun County Public Library and your host today. Please feel free to send me any comments and questions you may have during the program by using the chat feature. I can then relay them to our speaker. It's my pleasure to introduce Sheila Murphy, partner and co-founder of Flex Professionals, a firm that matches experienced professionals seeking meaningful part-time employment with growing businesses in need of top talent. Featured on the Today Show, Sheila is a career reentry expert, work flexibility advocate, and seasoned speaker and trainer on a variety of job search and career development topics. Welcome back, Sheila.
Thank you, as always. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for spending the next hour with me. I'm going to throw a lot out at you today. This webinar is sort of it covers a lot of topics, but in some ways we only touch the surface because there are so many topics to talk about. So this is really kind of a teaser for you. It's a way for you to quickly get some tips about re-entering and doing it in a way that's going to make you successful. And it's really just like I said, covering the surface. So feel free to ask questions, feel free to enter them in and let me know a little bit about your background when you do that. That's very helpful. I typically give this webinar, it's really intended for people who have extended career breaks, I would say more than a year, and for people who are in transition, even though the topics are actually and the tips are helpful to everybody. So here's our agenda for today. I'm also going to tell you just quickly before we start a little bit about Flex Professionals, because most importantly, because we match job seekers to jobs. So we have access to jobs throughout the DC metro area that you might be interested in. So Flex Professionals was founded by myself and two other women at a time in our lives, gosh, almost well over 10 years ago, when we all really needed flexibility for caregiving purposes. I was a widow, a new widow at the time. I had 3 young kids. I wanted to work, but I couldn't work full time and I couldn't commute downtown. And like many women who don't find what they're looking for out there, they create it. And so that's what we did. And we just felt there was a real need that local businesses would really benefit from people like us and people like you. So caregivers who have left the workforce that are looking to re-enter, that's our target audience. Professionals, caregivers who don't want to be working 40 hours a week to meet demands at home, that's our target job seeker, as well as what we call second career professionals. So people in transition, people who maybe have 20, 30 years of experience, but aren't quite ready to retire, want to do something different, don't want to do it full time. We do have some full-time flex jobs that we source for, but most of our jobs are part-time, and part-time means many things to many different people. It could be 32 hours a week, or it could be 10 hours a month, and everything in between. So we've worked with lots of employers in the DC metro area. And like I said before, we really focus on letting businesses know that there's a lot of untapped talent out there. And if you look on the slide here on the lower right-hand column, we source in many areas. So we place graphic designers, we place accountants, we place HR managers, we place communications specialists, writers, admins, you name it. There's something for everybody as long as it's in the kind of the business realm. We work with a lot of local businesses and nonprofits. So I will give you my contact information at the end. But I think that what you can benefit from today is that I work with job seekers every day, but I also work with employers. So I'm going to give you feedback and tips based on both of those sides of the puzzle. And I think that's really important. Job seekers need to know what employers are thinking and why they do or don't do what they do or don't do. So without further ado, I do Normally when I do this as a workshop, and this is the one webinar where I would love to do in person, I think it's really valuable because I think that the people on this call will learn a lot from each other if they were to introduce themselves. And usually when I'm in a room and I do this webinar and I go around the room and I say to people, introduce yourself, tell me where you're from, and give me a little bit about your professional background. Most people in the room will start by telling me how many years they've been out of work. And I always say to them, I'm glad, I kind of baited you, glad you told me how many years you're out of work. In some ways, it gives you a sense of comfort knowing that you're not out there alone. There's a lot of people trying to re-enter the workforce, especially right now. But the other thing that I will tell you is this. There are not only systemic barriers and a stigma out there. So gaps in resumes tend to put you in the no pile. The longer you're unemployed, the harder it is to get a job. The longer you're unemployed, the harder it is to get back in making what you think you deserve to make. But there are also personal barriers. And the personal barrier is that lack of confidence. And it's that negative self-talk that's in your head that's saying, oh my gosh, I don't know what I want to do next. I need a job. I'm ready to get back in, but where do I start? And my gap is getting longer by the day, and I feel like I'm getting rusty and I'm not doing a great job of conveying my skills. And that type of negative talk is probably the most damaging thing to your job search. So we're going to give you some tips about that today. But the longer the break, you have a tendency to tell me how many years you've been out of a break. And then I say to my candidates when I interview them, don't start with that. And they say, oh, well, I'm just telling you that. I'm like, I'm interviewing you. Do not start with the amount of years you've been out of work because nobody's going to hire you because of that. So while that occupies 90% of your brain, you got to get rid of it. And start talking about your skills. So we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Just a quick tip or a sort of an interesting fact. People who have extended career breaks, when they re-enter, a third tend to go back to do what they did prior to their career break. A third transition altogether. They oftentimes, through their career break, through the relationships that they develop, through their experiences, and often through their volunteerism and community service, they find their passions or they identify skills that really make them happy. And so they end up transitioning to doing something totally different. And I suspect there's a lot of people on this call that feel that way. And then a third are kind of like me, although I think I fall into all three of these categories, two of the three categories. They can't find what they're looking for, and they can't find what works for their schedule, so they start their own business. That's why there are so many solopreneurs out there. That's why the gig economy has gotten so big and even bigger since COVID, and that is why there's a lot of women entrepreneurs. So super quick, I'm just going to talk about, I always have this in my webinars for reentry. What does the workplace look like? What does the labor market look like? What does the workforce look like? A lot has changed the longer you've been out. And I can't tell you how many times I have changed this slide in front of you. That's why it looks so boring. I haven't even had time to put a graphic on it. So much has changed in the last year and a half that this slide is constantly changing for me. So super quick, so you got to get a sense. And what I'd like for you to see here is not just the stats, but the fact that all of these bullets pose challenges for you, but they also pose opportunities. It's kind of how you look at it. So let's just do a little mindset reframe here and look at this positively. So yeah, we had the tightest labor market before the pandemic. There are now about 5 million fewer jobs than before the pandemic, but things are trending in the right direction for sure. But what we're seeing is it's happening super fast. That's good. Jobs are being added, but that the recovery is incredibly uneven. So there are huge disparities in hiring by industry. So look for the opportunities. Where are there growth industries, and where those are the industries that I think you really need to focus on. Construction industry. Now, you don't need to be at all interested in construction, but that industry hires marketing people, it hires sales people, it hires project managers, it hires graphic designers. So start to think broadly. That's just an example. An unprecedented number of women have opted out of work. It's all over the news. It has erased the significant number of gains that women have made over the past even 30 years. 12.2 million women left their jobs between February and April of 2020, and so many of them have yet to return or have just stopped looking altogether. So while that is a Debbie Downer, I think the positive side of that is if you are a female on this call, and I suspect many of you are, this is a good time to get back in, because I think that employers are sensitive to the challenges that caregivers, men or women, have faced, and are open in terms of providing flexibility, and are open in terms of looking at possibilities instead of weeding you out. That is my true hope. The other thing you're going to find is there's a huge mismatch, and this is very true in the DC metro area, between job openings and the skills and preferences of job seekers. So for example, Marriott and Hilton, who are both based here, laid off a ton of people. But a lot of those people don't want to go back into hospitality anymore. They're done. So that's a problem. Another mismatch is that there's a lot of people that have gotten laid off, and those people don't have the hard technical skills to occupy the jobs that are most in demand in the DC metro area. Right now, those are the cybersecurity jobs, the IT networking jobs, web development, software development, and data analytics. Those are the jobs around here that are in demand. But there's a story here too on that. Upskilling when you re-enter, if you don't have those skills, but you feel that those fields are of interest to you, and you feel that you have aptitude, this is a great time as part of your job search to get those new skills. And you would be incredibly surprised at how much is out there for free certifications and training for training Northern Virginia's workforce right now. So go to Northern Virginia Community College and Google Northern Virginia Community College and workforce. Their workforce page is full of opportunities to upskill. And there is a program called the Fast Forward Program. It is free money that they are giving to job seekers to get trained. So that's one example. The second example I would give you, if you are interested in cyber and cloud security, Google the Virginia Cyber Skills Academy, so VCSA. They received a ton of money to provide free cyber training to people who, they have two tracks: cyber training for people with some experience and cyber training for people with no experience. So there are opportunities out there. The next, what we're seeing is a surge in retirements. 2 million more people than expected retired in 2020 throughout the pandemic. That leads a huge challenge for employers, but it also means that there's a lot of job openings out there. So sell your soft skills. My suspicion is most people on this call are probably more seasoned workers. You have a lot of soft skills that companies want. 2021 was the year of the resignation. There was a record high 13% increase in the number of people who resigned from their jobs to do something different. So there's a lot of movement out there that should be good for you. The talent wars, because of this mismatch between job openings and job seekers, we're seeing that even in our own company, our employers are willing to pay more. Our candidates are demanding more pay. That's all good stuff. What I would say to the women on this call is that the statistics are a bit depressing about females during the pandemic. Men have used the pandemic in general to ask for pay increases, or they are planning to ask for pay increases, and women have not. And so the pandemic has not changed the general, I'm stereotyping, but the general lack of confidence women have in asking for pay increases. So what did women do during the pandemic? They left the workforce instead of saying to their employer, hey, you don't want to lose me. I want X, Y, and Z, and I want a pay increase. So I want you to start thinking about that, because part of getting a job, is the job search piece, but it's also the negotiation piece at the end. And so I'll just close with this about, again, companies might be more open to people in career transition right now and with gaps. So this is the time to double up your job search effort. Again, I'll just quickly go through this. I think this whole pandemic has been called this great reassessment in terms of job searching and in terms of flexibility. So I will just go down to a few things I think will probably be of interest to you. I think this hybrid model is likely to continue. We are finding that our own clients that refuse to give any flexibility, we can't fill their jobs. So you are in a good position as a job seeker to ask for flexibility. And when you feel like you've been out of work and you're desperate, sometimes you're hesitant to negotiate, but I think this is something you can negotiate for, okay? Another thing just to keep in mind, remote networking, remote interviewing, remote onboarding, and remote working, I think, are here to stay. So get used to doing that. Get used to interviewing using Zoom. That's what's being used these days. The tech-savvy worker benefits in a remote work environment. If you are not comfortable with technology, if you don't show that through the job search process, you are going to not get hired. So start to improve your tech skills. We'll talk more about that as well. Okay. I mentioned this quickly, so I'm not going to go through it anymore, just about the gig economy. The reason why I talk about this is that if you are trying to get back into work and you have any flexibility or support for 3 to 6 months to not have benefits, sometimes starting as a contract worker or as a temp worker can be a great way to get yourself in the door and then to show your value and get that full-time W-2 job with benefits. So it's just an option for some of you that you can use to your advantage. Quickly about changing demographics. If you've been out of work for a while, what's going to be different is that there are going to be 4 generations of people in the workplace. And what I think is most important as the takeaway here is do not be surprised if you're going to get interviewed by somebody younger than you. Age discrimination exists out there, that is for sure. But one way of overcoming it is when you walk into that room and the person interviewing you is 10, 20 years younger than you, you need to sit back, you need to act confident, you need to act completely okay with it, you need to act so comfortable, you need to exude a positive energy and a smile is something that eliminates the concern that you are too old. It eliminates that discomfort in the room. And the more comfortable that you are with working with somebody younger, the more comfortable they are going to be in hiring you. Just quickly here, and I mentioned this before, pay gaps. If you are, the longer the career break, I would say more than 5 years, it is costly. Your career gap is costly. It's costly in terms of the pay that your starting pay. It's costly in terms of the earnings you have lost by not working and not saving. It's costly in terms of the amount of time it's going to take you to get back in is usually longer. But what I want you to really take away from this slide is what's at the bottom there in red. We have found, and we love seeing this, but we will start somebody at an hourly rate that somebody's been out 15 years, they get an hourly rate of $25 an hour, and 3 years later, they're coming back in either because they use that job as a stepping stone to something else, and the next thing you know, their pay rate has literally doubled. So look for the potential in the job, look for the growth opportunity in the fit. Is this job going to get you to where you want to go? You usually don't get from A to B in a straight line, not when it comes to careers. You get there by making moves here, left and right, and here and there. And some might feel like a little step back, but if it's going to boomerang you forward because you're going to gain the skills that you need and or the confidence and or get the your network growing, that's what you want to do. Okay, so moving on to concerns. These are the top concerns of people re-entering. You know, are you ready? If you've been off through an extended break, especially with the pandemic, if you've left because of caregiving, is your family back ready? This is a real problem right now because a lot of our younger moms, younger stay-at-home dads and moms, they're not so sure what's going to happen in October, November, and December. So they're not quite ready to go back to work yet. There's a concern about your technology gap. That's a real concern. Employers have that concern too. Use your job search as a improve your technology skills as part of your job search. So make your job search a job, and as part of that job, every day you should be doing something to improve your tech skills. Lack of confidence, uncertainty about career direction. I'll just give you one anecdote there. Oftentimes I will interview somebody who has an extended gap on their resume or even a short gap, and they're so focused on that gap and concerned. And when I say to them, so what are you looking to do? They will say to me, you know, I'm not sure. I'm actually really open to a variety of opportunities. While that sounds positive that I am open to many opportunities, you're basically telling the hiring manager or the interviewer that you don't know what you're looking for. So I would caution you from using that type of language. Instead, it's okay if you don't know exactly what you want to do, but you do need to know what skills that you want to use. We'll talk about that in a minute. Absence of your professional network. I would say to that, your personal network is your most important professional network. So that's really a misconception among job seekers. And outdated industry knowledge is a concern, but that's something you can fix. That's something you can fix very easily in an online environment. Top concerns of employers. It's pretty much the same thing. They are worried, as the longer your career break, the more worried they are that you're not going to be committed to their company. I think this is a huge misconception of employers. Our company has found that our reentry professionals are probably the most committed because they want that job to get rid of that gap in their resume so bad. They have staying power. So I think this is something that to overcome this, it's not about your needs when you're negotiating, when you're getting hired, or when you're interviewing. It's not about, oh, I'm reluctant, or I'm rusty, or I'm not so sure about this. You need to let them know upfront, I am ready and I have the support in place to make this move. Technology gap, I would say technology gap and lack of confidence is probably the two biggest reasons why our reentry professionals, when they are hired, if they are unsuccessful, and most are successful, but if they are unsuccessful, it's because the company feels that it's taking them too much time, they're in need of hand-holding, and they just weren't ready with the workplace technology skills that you need to hit the ground running on day one. Overqualified. A lot of our job seekers want to do something different or have been out of work long enough that they don't want to go back in at the high level that they were at when they left the workforce. So if you are really interested in a job that you feel you're overqualified for, our advice to you is that you hit that issue front and center as early as you can. So put it on your cover letter, If you get called for an interview, don't wait until the end of the interview when the interviewer has already made the decision or the conclusion that you're overqualified and says to you, you know, my one concern is that you're overqualified. At that point, they probably made a decision not to hire you. So up at the very beginning of the interview, say to them, you know, here's my background, blah, 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 blah. I'm really interested in this position. I suspect you may think that I'm overqualified, but I want this job because, and so maybe it's, I really love the work that you're doing in your mission, and I love it so much. It's more important to me to do work in this mission. I care more about that and less about the work. And I want to use this job to boost my skills and gain my confidence. And this is what I can handle right now, both professionally and personally. Or maybe it's, I know you think I'm overqualified, but right now in my life, I want to be a sole contributor. In my previous job, I had to travel 2 weeks out of the month. I managed 50 people. I don't want to do that anymore. And once you are honest and transparent, you alleviate that concern for the employer. Okay, so let's move on to tips. I'm going to go through these tips kind of as if you were going through the job search process. Most people, when they think about going back to work, the first thing they do is they grab a hold of their resume and say, I need to redo my resume, or they start to write their resume. I would argue today that if you don't take the time to figure out what it is you want to do, what it is that you're good at, and take the time to improve your skills, your resume is going to fall short of expectations and it's not going to resonate with an employer. So start here first. Let's leave the resume till later. So at Flex Professionals, we have what we call a readiness framework. So I want you to start to think about this as part of your job search process, as part of making yourself marketable, as part of getting your confidence up and landing that job. You need to do 3 things for most people, at least 2 things for most people. Third, depending if you're looking for a more technical role. So the first thing you need to start thinking about is your job search readiness. So that's what you're doing today. You're here. You might want to take a resume class. You might want to start to try to learn, effective networking techniques, learn a little bit about salary negotiation. That's your job search readiness. Your workplace readiness is, what do I need to do in order to beef up my technical skills so that I know how to do calendaring. I know the latest version of Word. My Excel skills are intermediate if that's what you need for your job, or advanced or basic. I know PowerPoint. I know Google Suite. Those are your workplace readiness skills. And then there's the technical skills. Based on what I want to do next, do I need to talk to people about what what softwares are being used in pharmaceutical sales these days? Do most companies use Salesforce? Or if I'm into marketing, what type of digital marketing tools are being used that I need to brush up on or learn? So that's what that technical is. So start to think about this as you start to self-explore. The next part is sort of looking inward. What do I offer? What do I value? So part of it is, what do I bring to the table? And what is it that I need to articulate in my resume, in my interviews, when I network? And at this point in your lives, my guess most of you on this webinar today, you've been there and done that. You probably have a lot of skills. So this is more about, what skills do you have that you're really good at, but that you also love to use, right? So I might be great at sales. If I hate sales and I don't want to do it anymore, then you don't want to advertise that skill on your resume or in an interview, right? So what do you like to do? What do you do well? What do you, if you have done something really well, if you're really good at something, then you probably have demonstrated in the past through an accomplishment that you've done that. So you have to have that. So think about that. Then there's also, what kind of personality traits do I have that stand out, that resonate no matter where I go, that I want to use in my next job, that I want to sell. And then you start to go into motivations, values, work preferences. Are you a sole contributor? Do you like to work support people, be in the back office? Or would you die doing that? Would you rather be client facing? Do you want to be sitting at a desk? Do you not want to be sitting at a desk? Do you thrive in a big company where roles tend to be more siloed and you have more of a specialty? Or are you a jack of all trades kind of person that would be much better off in a small business? Do you like to work in a high stress environment? Do you like to work in more of an academic environment or a more casual environment, a more industrial environment? What are those kinds of things that you value? Is it the teamwork and the collaboration, or is it kind of independent research? All of these things play into the kinds of jobs you're going to look for and how you're going to sell yourself on the resume. So take the time to think this through. Once you've thought that through, now you're at a point where you can start to think about the resume. So I'm going to go through the resume tips, and then I'll take a quick stop to see if there's any questions. We often have a lot of questions related to resumes, so feel free to ask those questions in the chat or the Q&A. So resumes. I think the big misconception of job seekers is that they think the resume as a piece of paper where they have to capture everything they did in their prior work history. So they put everything down. And what I would like for you to think about today, if you've truly done the self-exploration and the self-assessment, identify what your top skills are, identify what your top traits are, and create a resume that is a reflection more of what you want to do next than what you did. So if there's a job on your resume that you hated and it was short term, maybe you want to think about taking it out. If there is a job that you had for a long time and there was a piece of that job that you loved, but a lot of that job you didn't love, well, you might want to think about reducing the bullets. And all of those bullets related to the job duties you had that you didn't love, minimize them or delete them. Take the pieces of the job that you loved and that you were successful at, and that when you talk about it in an interview, it's going to energize you. Keep those bullets on there. Even if you didn't do those bullets, you did that work only 20% of the time, okay? So focus on what you want to do moving forward. Include the experience that best illustrates your skills for the role that you're looking for. So for some people who have had long career breaks or who have found their passions through unpaid work, pro bono work, community service, volunteer work through your kids' schools, if that illustrates skills that you have, by all means, include it and give it some value. Give it the value it deserves. If you're switching career paths, be very careful. You want to use the language of the new career path. You want to use the terms that you would use in that career. You want to focus your bullet points. You want to let people know up front in your profile, that little summary section at the top of the page, that you're transitioning or that you're eager to re-enter the workforce. Let people know so that they don't go, huh? And try to figure you out. It's okay to edit. Resumes are a work in progress. You should be editing it a lot, but don't hide behind it and think that you're job searching by sitting and spending 5 hours doing your resume. You're not really job searching. Job searching is getting out there and talking to people. Focus on the content, not the design. So don't go, my friend Tom has this awesome resume. It looks so nice. So I'm going to delete all of his stuff and try to put mine in his format. Tom's story is different from yours. And if you try to put your stuff into somebody's story, even use those resume templates that are out there, I think sometimes it causes a lot of problems for you. So quick tips, the profile. So the top of back, 15 years ago, at the top of a resume, you had your objective. I am looking for blah, blah, blah in XYZ environment using XYZ skills. That is no longer trendy. That is all about what you want. Flip it. So it's all about what's in it for me, the hiring manager or the recruiter when I'm reading the resume. What do you bring to the table that I need? So flip it and create a summary or a profile, summary of qualifications that isn't fluffy, but that really narrows down and gets to what it is that you bring to the table. If you have a gap, don't put it down as a job. So from 2016 to 2021, stay-at-home mom. Don't do that. You're over advertising it. Nobody's going to hire you because you stayed home, but they are going to hire you because you're eager to get back to work after a career break and use XYZ skills. So tease with it if you're comfortable in your profile and say, you're eager to transition, eager to return. Don't tell them how many years, they'll figure it out. Don't tell them why. Don't over explain or apologize, okay? Emphasize your most substantive work. So if you were out on break and you did seasonal work, or you've been working at Pottery Barn or Home Depot and it's not what you want to do, I probably wouldn't include that on my resume. Focus on accomplishments. This is what's been very different about resumes. It's not about the duties. If I read a resume with, responsible for human resource policies and procedures, managed benefits, that shows me you're qualified, but it doesn't wow me. But if you tell me that you started an HR function from the ground up, or that you were successful in hiring 40 people in a year of unprecedented growth at your company, that's telling me something. So focus on the accomplishment. Include your volunteer work. For some people, you're including it because it demonstrates your skills. For other people, you're simply including it very briefly so that somebody looks at your resume and goes, gap, volunteer work. Oh, they weren't staying home doing nothing. They weren't fired and having a hard time finding work. They've kept themselves and they've kept their skills sharp through their volunteer work. So that's why you might want to include it. And then include your technical skills and proficiencies. The older you are, the more important it is for you to itemize these on your resume, list them out, because of the concern that older job seekers lack the tech skills needed in today's work environment. Lorraine, are there any questions?
No questions yet, but please, this is a reminder. If you do have questions as we go along, feel free to type them in the chat box and I'll relay them to Sheila.
Okay. So now that you've got your resume ready and you're ready to get out there and to start pounding the pavement, let's talk a little bit about networking, and including LinkedIn in here, because LinkedIn is a networking tool. It doesn't replace networking. It supplements it, and it is incredibly helpful as a networking tool. So just quickly, the one very, very, very valid top complaint I get from the job seekers that I talk to is that there is a wealth of jobs out there. There's no contact information for people to contact. There's no email. You can't send your resume to somebody. You are being forced to do it through an online platform or through a company website career portal. And you drop that resume in and there's a pop-up box that says, thank you. And that's the end. It goes down the black hole and you never get any responses. That's true. And I can't emphasize enough that while you still have to put your resume in that system, the way you're going to find a job is through one-on-one connections with people. So look at those stats. 80% of all jobs are found by one-on-one personal connections, networking. Only 20% are filled online. Now, you might network And you might meet somebody and the person says, go to our website, put your job in so it's in our system, but I'm going to walk your resume down the hall and tell my HR manager that I want to interview you. That's how this works. So putting it in the online system is your first step in the process, not your last stop. Then you got to go and figure out who you know at these companies and who you can talk to. 1 in 7 people referred are job seekers are hired versus 1 in 100. So, and 40% of jobs are never advertised. That's why you shouldn't search for the job, search for the environment that you want to work in, search for the company, and the job will come. So just 2 quick examples in my own company. So anybody, if I have a candidate, a rock star candidate that we place with a client, that client loves that candidate. We all know who they are. And that candidate sends me an email and says, Sheila, I want to introduce you to my friend, Mary. She is looking for a bookkeeping job. She's my neighbor. She's awesome. So I just thought I'd connect the 2 of you. I'm going to interview that person. I'm going to go into my system. I'm going to say, Mary, so nice. Thank you for connecting. Do me a favor. Put your resume in my system and email me when you have, and I will go in and I'll tag you for an interview, because good people bring me good people. So find your good people out there. Find those friends that are talented. Find those friends that are comfortable making connections. Let them know and ask them for referrals, okay? Same thing with jobs being never advertised. Most of our companies, we talked about this part-time model that we have. The light bulb goes off and they go, gosh, I really need a part-time marketing communication specialist. That job is not even out there, and we find people for them. So that's what you need to start selling yourself that way. So great networking strategies. Reconnect with your professional network. The longer you've been out, the more skeptical you are to do this. They're not going to remember me. They've retired. Remember that they remember you as your professional self. Don't forget about the people that used to work for you. They might be in positions to hire. Just because in your professional network, friends that at your company did completely different jobs than you, that's okay. They might have moved on to other organizations that still need somebody with your skill set. They might be in a position to hire you. They will be in a position, don't expect to get the job through them, just expect them to open up their network and get you referrals, be able to introduce you to other people. Upskilling, going back to school to learn a technology is a great way to improve your skills and to gain confidence, but also to gain a network. The teacher who's teaching you often teaches at night and works for a company. That teacher might know of other people in need of a person with the skill that you're trying to master. So upskilling is a great networking strategy as well. Smart volunteering. So you're ready to get back in? You know what skills you want to use? Start saying no to the volunteer work that you do reactively. So people ask you to do it and you say yes because you feel bad. And start saying, okay, I'm going to take my 10 hours a week that I have right now as part of my job search, and I'm going to think about working for a nonprofit in a web content managed capacity. I'm going to offer up my skills so that I can gain some confidence, gain some skills, and put those skills on my resume. And so that I have tangible work products that I can give to somebody else. You can do this very easily if you have a marketing background, a graphic design, a bookkeeping background, project management, you name it, communications. Pursuing an internship, offering up to do temp work. Find a friend. Do you have a friend who does what you want to do that is in a consulting firm, in a consulting arrangement, or owns her own consulting business, or is working for a company and is in a position to hire somebody for project work? Tell that friend, I will do it at a reduced rate just to get this experience on my resume. And sometimes that will lead to a job offering. We have interns. We have 50 and 60-year-old interns in our company. It's another great way. They're often called now returnships. So if you've had an extended gap, consider offering up offering a company, hey, I will work for you as a paid returner for 3 months, and let's see how it goes. In terms of LinkedIn, being on LinkedIn is super important, but it's equally important to be active and to have a completed profile. So we have a lot of clients that say to our, when we present candidates to our clients, sometimes they'll come back and say, are they on LinkedIn? And if they're not, the employer will say, well, I don't want to interview them. Like LinkedIn is just, it's where to be professionally. It shows that you're in the game, that you've got skin in the game. And if you're not there, they don't want to interview you. It also makes you look like you're outdated by not being on there. It looks like you might not have the tech savviness. Being on there with a completed profile, with a really good professional photo, with up-to-date experience, and with your about section complete and really compelling, that says a lot to the recruiter in terms of your experience and your motivation. So get on LinkedIn and make sure that your first job, give yourself a job. So if you're out of work right now, your first job should be communications professional or communications consultant if you truly do some communications consulting. But it could be communications professional. And then the second part, which tells about what it is that you do, you can put down seeking opportunities in the area of X, Y, and Z, using X, Y, and Z skills or something like that. So use that section to let people know you're open for work. On LinkedIn, there's a very powerful back-end recruiting functionality for job seekers. So you can go on LinkedIn and you can search under, I think it's under the settings, and you can go and you can turn on open to work. It lets people in the back end of LinkedIn, recruiters, know that you're looking. You can also turn it on the front end if you want, and that will give you like this green banner over your professional photo that says open to work. And you can go on there and specify your preferences. You can specify you're interested in part-time or full-time or project work only. You can specify your location. You can specify industry. You can specify skills. There's a lot you can do in the back end to let people know, and recruiters will find you. So make sure that all of those skills and those keywords that are in job descriptions that you're interested in are in your LinkedIn profile, because linked recruiters will search your current title and your current experience and your about section more than any other section on LinkedIn. So your tagline title on LinkedIn and your current title. Those are the two that are most searched. Make sure that they provide the information that a recruiter needs to find you. Interview tips. The longer you've been out, the more time you should spend getting intimate with the details on your resume. A big interviewing weakness of our job seekers is that they say things like this when they're interviewed. Gosh, it's been so long. I don't remember how many people worked for XYZ company, or, I'm just a little rusty on what I did. Don't do that. Read your resume. Try to remind yourself what you did. Go through old paperwork. Do whatever you can to jog that memory. It's kind of like going to your high school reunion. At first, you can't remember anybody's names, but by the end of the weekend, all that memory start to come back, and the details. You want the details to come back when you go into the interview, not like after your 5th interview. Okay. So super important. And the other thing about this, I think that the job seekers that we work with, generally speaking, they're not comfortable. They're not used to selling themselves. And they feel like when they repeat an accomplishment bullet that's on their resume, they repeat it on in the interview, they feel it almost like they're like, it's condescending to the interviewer that, the interviewer should have read your resume. They don't read your resume. They maybe spend 20 seconds reading your resume before they go into the interview, if at all. Half the time they're walking down the hallway saying, hey, so-and-so, do you have a copy of their resume for me? So it's important for you to regurgitate, to talk about those skills and those things that are on that resume. It validates to the person that you indeed have those skills and those accomplishments. Get used to phone and video interviews. Our website, we have flexprofessionalsllc.com. We have a ton of resources under job seekers resources. We have the job search readiness, we have the workplace readiness and technical readiness resources. In there are tips for doing phone and video interviews. If there's any tip I can give you, get the lighting straight, look into your camera and smile. When you smile, you exude confidence and an energy level and happiness, and people want to hire people that are like them and that are happy and energetic. So you want to exude that. Behavioral interviews. Be ready for those tough interview questions. A behavioral interview question starts with, tell me about a time when. So tell me about a time when you had a really difficult customer. How did you handle it and how did you resolve the issue? So behavioral interview questions, you cannot fake it and you can't BS it. You have to provide a real life example of having the competency that's being asked and having demonstrated a result. And what this does is, the whole point is that past behavior is the best indicator of future performance. So that's why interviewers are asking you those types of questions. You're going to find skills testing as part of the interview process for many jobs now, or other types of testing like, hey, can you come in and give a 5-minute presentation? Or we're going to give you a question and you need to present a writing sample, or we're going to give you a little exercise in Excel to see how well you do. Those are now part of the interview process, so get used to that as well. And then finally, on interviews, how do you address a gap? How do you address a gap for childcare purposes? Or how do you address a gap, a layoff, or a gap for personal reasons, for personal health issues? Start with your successes and your skills always, not your gap. So no matter what the icebreaker question is, tell me about yourself. Don't talk about your mom's group or your rowing class or your, Orange Theory class. Talk about your skills and your successes. And if you're going to mention your gap, mention it ever so briefly and totally positively. Like, I am excited to return. I had a fabulous opportunity to take a career break. I learned a lot during that break. I kept my skills sharp and I can't wait to get back to work. I love this job and I think I'm best suited for it because I bring X, Y, and Z to the table. So never apologetic and don't go into too much detail. If they want you to go into detail, they kind of bait you. So how many kids do you have? And, curious to know, why did you spend 10 years, blah, blah, blah. Redirect it back to your skill set. Always express an eagerness, excitement, but also a readiness. So if you mention a health issue, which I probably wouldn't, but if you feel that you're at a point where you can and you want to, I would always mention it's been resolved. Or if you mention that you took 2 years off to take care of your mother's estate after to care for your mother who had dementia and then take care of her estate after she died, let them know that this situation has resolved. Or if it hasn't resolved, that you have the support in place to get back in. And that's especially true with kids, right? I'm ready, my family's ready. Don't go into too much detail, but let them know you've got the support. Okay, the last section here, technology skills. So I'm just going to focus on the getting back to work. What do you need today to be productive day one in the office? It's not good enough in a resume or an interview to say something like, I'm really a quick learner. I used Excel, 10 years ago in my previous job, and I'm pretty sure I can get up to speed really quickly. That's not going to fly anymore. Instead, you got to demonstrate, I took an Excel skills class. I took a training. I got a certification. I took a competency test and I scored a 95%. The one thing I got wrong was blah, blah, blah. And I went back and I went on YouTube and I figured out how to do it. That's that you want to use the jargon. You want to show them that you took the effort to learn. So what is that? Microsoft Office Suite. Microsoft itself has great trainings on this. You don't have to take an expensive class to get proficiency in this. Google Suite. You need to know Google Suite. You need to know Microsoft Office Suite, at least Excel, Word, Outlook, and PowerPoint. How well you know PowerPoint, how well you know Excel depends. If I'm hiring an accountant, they need to know Excel better than an admin, okay? If I'm hiring an analyst, they probably even have to know more functionality with regard to Excel than a bookkeeper. So you have to know what it is that you need to the level of proficiency suitable for what you want to do next. Google Suite, that's pretty basic stuff. Being familiar with it is really important. You don't need to know every calendaring tool. So if you don't know Outlook, you use Gmail, that's fine. Or if you use something else, that's fine. Just master that tool in terms of emails, in terms of scheduling, calendaring, etc. And then there's all sorts of now cloud-based collaboration and communication tools. Again, it's not worth knowing all of them because guaranteed the job you get hired for, they're going to use something different. But they all operate under using this basic similar functionality. You need to understand the basic functionality and how they're used, okay? So how do you do that? Here's some context for you, some links. Microsoft has lots of checklists. Microsoft has lots of tutorials. Go to YouTube. YouTube will be your best friend for accessing tutorials on how to do X, how to do Y, and Z. Google has a great learning center. There's libraries. Loudon, with your library card, you have access to LinkedIn Learning. LinkedIn Learning has thousands of great trainings, from sales trainings to QuickBooks to Java to Tableau to Python, depending upon what you need. Your community education, I don't know about Loudoun County, but Fairfax County has an ACE program. It's adult education through their high schools. They will, all of these basic proficiencies, you can learn through them. Plus you can learn other ones like QuickBooks, which is a great thing to learn if you have any interest in the accounting field. Your local employment centers, Loudoun's local employment centers offers free training. Ask your kids. Here's a link to Total Testing. It's a great little website. For 20 bucks, you can take a proficiency test, for example, in intermediate Word, and take it expecting to fail. But what it's going to do is going to shoot you out an entire checklist of everything you passed and everything you failed. And it is going to give you enough detail that you can Google what you failed and learn it, or go on and take a class and learn it. Lots of tutorials on YouTube and LinkedIn. And then again, like I said in the beginning, then you got to get that practical experience and start to use that technology through your volunteer work, personally, internships, pro bono. And then when somebody says to you in an interview, so how's your Excel skills? My reentry who's rusty is going to say to me, well, they're pretty good. I'd say I'm proficient. My savvy reentry professional job seeker who has taken the time to learn it is going to say to me, I would say my proficiency is about intermediate. I can do VLOOKUPs and HLOOKUPs. I learned and mastered pivot tables. I took a class through Loudoun County, and I went on a testing website that employers use to test proficiency. total testing, and I scored a 98. Here are my results. And here's a sample of a Excel budget that I created for my, my PTA position. So you can see the difference between those two answers, okay? I will go super quick because we're at the end here. Confidence is super important to returning to work. So be aware of that negative self-talk. Always be positive, never apologetic. It doesn't matter if your work experience and accomplishments are old. If you don't tell somebody they're old, they're never gonna know. Sharpen your skills. It's going to help you build confidence. Find a job coach or a mentor, and find somebody that's going to help you hold you accountable. There's trade-offs, but not forever. So remember, what's most important to you right now for getting back in is I need to make X amount of money to pay my mortgage, and I need a job at a certain compensation level. Are you more concerned about a job title? Are you more concerned about the work environment? Is it the schedule that's most important to you? There's no right or wrong answer, but take these little factors and weigh them. And as you look at that job posting, as you decide to call somebody to network, remember what your priorities are so that you evaluate the opportunity based on your priorities, not what somebody else thinks is a great job or a great opportunity. We are at the end. Here's contact information for my company. To the right there, you'll see my contact information. I'm Sheila Murphy. There's my email. I work in our DC Metro office. Please connect with us on Facebook, on LinkedIn. Follow our company. You will see our job postings. All of our jobs are posted on our website. You can submit your resume through your website. If you're interested in part-time work, please do contact me. I only ask if you do, put your resume in our system first. That way I can help you, okay? If you put your resume in and you send me a nice email and I feel like you're a fit for our model, I will tag you for an interview, and that will give you a huge leg up in the process. Okay, I'm done. All right, I'm done. I feel like I'm a broken record.
Thank you so much, Sheila. That was a lot of really great information and to the point. I do have some questions. I'll get right into them. And by the way, if anyone would rather talk to Sheila directly, just let me know and I'll unmute your microphone. Okay, question one. What advice would you give to a former teacher wanting a job in LAD HR? LAD.
So teachers are tough because people look at your resume and they think why does she want this job? So my first piece of advice was at the top of your resume on the profile, you need to let people know right away that you are transitioning into the HR field. You can almost present yourself as an HR and educational professional with 10 years of experience in the classroom environment, eager to transition into an HR role where I can utilizing strong conflict resolution, presentation, training, human development skills. So something like that. And then take your education jobs and take out the things that are less relevant to an HR role, like managing a classroom perhaps, and more relevant to an HR role. So the things like maybe identifying training needs or academic needs of students, those types of things. So if you want an HR role where you're going to be presenting, where you're going to be developing staff, focus on that type of curriculum development, for example. So even if you didn't do it for most of your day, pick the ones that translate best to HR. And then for somebody like you to really beef up that resume, I would have a volunteer section on it, and I would try to find some kind of volunteer work where you're doing something related to human resources. Join SHRM. It's the best Society of Human Resource Management. It's volunteer run. I guarantee you they will let you have a role on any committee, in multiple committees, and boom, you now have you have some keywords in there and experience right on your resume. So that's what you need to do.
Okay, thank you. Do you recommend hiring a headhunter? And if yes, how does that work?
I think that headhunters are for people at higher levels, high levels. So I don't know, from looking at your resume, I don't know your experience, but they're either headhunters or specialized. Headhunters are usually at more of an executive or director level that they're looking to fill those types of positions because it costs the company to pay for a headhunter, right? So I wouldn't hire one at first, but I do think using as many different resources as you can. So, you go your job search yourself, but look at staffing and recruiting firms first. Work with them first. For example, you can put your resume in my company. There's no cost to you and there's no obligation. So you can go and find other staffing companies and work with them as well. And maybe you develop some relationships with some recruiters. I would start there and see what that does for you, and then consider a headhunter after you've done more of that. Headhunters usually come to candidates, as a lot of headhunters work for companies. The company hires them to find candidates. So I would research it, but I wouldn't pay to have a headhunter, or I wouldn't sign anything where you have to work exclusively with one headhunter.
Okay, I'm looking for part-time, but most jobs seem to be full-time and senior level. Any comments on that, Sheila?
Um, there are part-time jobs out there. My company's been around for 10 years. But you are absolutely right. You're not going to find as many on Indeed or through online connection platforms. So if you're looking for part-time, probably the best resource for you is our company because of what we do. That's what we specialize in. I would find, if you can consider applying for some full-time jobs if you think that the company has a very flexible culture and you can hook them with your talent and then negotiate part-time. But I think you have to use your judgment on that one. And I would just also say for that too, sometimes part-time, find the company first and not the job. So find the company without the job opening, find the company that you want to work for, sell your skills, and then sell the part-time.
So in the past, when looking for a job, you've always focused on just the area where you live, pretty much, right? Where you can get to every day. But things have changed so much during COVID. So how does that affect the job search now? I mean, do you start to look nationally and with the hope that it could be, do you even promote that?
I don't think it's all has shaken out right now. So this is what I would say. If you're looking for full-time and do your research on the bigger companies that have shifted to 100% remote. And by all means, I would I think you should absolutely start to apply for those companies, even if they're not based in the DC metro area. Like I think REI just switched to all remote, their headquarters. So yes, I think that's fine. But I also think that even for those 100% remote jobs, remember now everybody's looking for them, right? So the competition for those jobs have increased as well. So just applying is not going to get you there. Like I said, that's the first thing you do. Then you got to go, for example, with the REI example, you got to find people in your network that are connected to people who work for REI. You got to follow them. You got to read them on social media. You got to intimately get to know them and try to find people there that might link in with you. And then when they link in with you, you say, hey, I love your company's mission. We have a similar skill set. I would love to know about what you do and if there are any opportunities at REI. It's not, I'm looking for a job, can you help me, right? So I still think though that if you're looking for remote, like for example, maybe now you look in Loudoun and Fairfax County, whereas before you weren't willing to go to Tyson's, right? Maybe you expand it to Maryland, but I would maybe keep that search narrow. our remote, 100% remote clients, they're still going to hire you if you live close by because they want you to come in every once in a while for a meeting. They want you to be able to show up for an important event, right? So I still think the local job seeker is more attractive even to the company that is 100% remote.
Oh, sorry. Thank you so much, Sheila. And for all of you listening, Sheila's slides just provide such great information. So I'm happy to say this has been recorded. And if you want to watch it again, you can do so by going to the library's YouTube page. And I'd also like to let you know that Sheila's going to be back for some more great programs. On September 29th, she's going to do an ACE-year interview program. That will be at 4 p.m. And then October 14th, Career Transitions is now the right time. And then I think we've got one more in November, on November 4th, 6:30, Top LinkedIn Tips. And you can find more information about these on the library's website. Hold on, we just got one more question, Sheila. Okay, I worked in HR in the UK, worked in school district as a site coordinator in California, just moved to Loudoun County, trying to get into the school district here. Have not succeeded yet. I have a bachelor's in marketing. I have also worked with children, special needs, etc. Need help finding a job.
I don't know about Loudoun County process for getting into the schools, but I guess my best advice for you is kind of like everything. So you just moved here. You probably don't have a big network, but go to the bus stop. I'm assuming you have kids, you're at the bus stop, or find people in your neighborhood. Do you know anybody that works for Loudoun County School System? I'd love to talk to them about the process. So it's not, I need a job from them, because then people kind of go, oh, I don't want to introduce you. Do you know anybody that works for Loudoun County School System? I would just love to, I'm just trying to figure out how to navigate the opportunities there. Can I talk to somebody? Can I talk to your friend? Start to pick people out, and make it very low key. I think you'll find that that's a great way of sort of getting sort of these connect. Oh, I know somebody who was an instructional aide. I know they need them at such and such a school. Here's the person to contact. And so I think there's a formal process you have to go through, but there's also that informal process that's going to get you get your feelers out about what opportunities are out there right now. So I think that that's probably, and I think these schools are so overwhelmed right now. I think the hiring, I think it's they might just not be what they're dealing with right now. They're dealing with a lot of other things, and they've already hired for the year. I don't know.
I'll chime in and say there are a lot of opportunities to volunteer in Loudoun County too, so that might be a good start. But
yes. That's the whole smart volunteering, right?
Workings and stuff. Although it sounds like from this question, Sheila, that this woman would also be open to jobs using her marketing degree. Maybe the best advice would be
a good example for you, that candidate, that job seeker, is you probably need 2 resumes. One is, this is my resume to get a job in teaching. And one is, this is my job to get for a non-teaching job. And so you might just need 2 different resumes with 2 different profiles that emphasize a few different things. And that might be helpful too. Last thing you want is your teaching resume with your teaching cover letter to somehow get cut and pasted onto, an employer's career portal. And then they're going to look at it and go, oh, I'm not hiring this person. She wants a teaching job, right? So just be careful of that.
All right, everyone. Well, thanks again for attending today. Feel free to reach out to Sheila directly if you want to send her your resume or have any other direct questions. And once again, she'll be back on September 29th at 4 p.m. to talk about acing your interview. All right. Thanks again, Sheila.
Thank you.